Hey, what's going on everybody? This is Ken. Today I will be doing my comparison between the HTC One and the iPhone 5S. This is going to be a detailed, in-depth comparison between these two top-of-the-line smartphones. I will be comparing the hardware, design, display, specs, benchmark, software, applications, other cool features, and of course, the camera. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get started with my detailed comparison between the HTC One and the 5S. So first, let's go ahead and begin with the design of the phones. The iPhone 5S is made out of aluminum with some glass on the back. Same thing goes with the HTC One. It's constructed with a full body aluminum. These two phones are probably the phones with the best build quality in the market right now. In terms of weight, the iPhone 5S is obviously lighter, only 112 grams. The HTC One is 143 grams. You can get the iPhone 5S in 3 different colors. I have the space gray version, which is basically a lighter color of the last generation iPhone 5S black. You can also get the champagne or gold color, and of course the silver white color. For the HTC One, you can also get a few different colors depending on which country you live in. I have the red version here because this is the international unlocked Taiwanese version of HTC One. I believe you can also get the red version if you live in UK in certain carriers. I believe they also announced a blue color coming soon to different carriers. So there are a lot of colors for the HTC One. Just depends on which country you live in and if it's available in your carrier. So the button layouts on these two phones are of course different. On the iPhone 5, you get the power button on the top right corner, the volume switches as well as a mute switch on the left side. At the bottom you will see the 3.5mm headphone jack, the microphone, the Apple Lightning port, and the iPhone speaker. On the right side you just get the SIM card slot. On the HTC One, you will find your power button on the top left corner, as well as a headphone jack on the top. On the left side, you will get the SIM card slot. On the right side, you will see your volume switches. A new feature you get on the iPhone 5S is the new fingerprint sensor on your home button, which I will demonstrate later in this video. On the HTC One, you get 2 capacitive touch buttons, the back button and the home button. Something that everybody notices when they look at the HTC One are the front-facing speakers. These speakers are just amazing, which I will demonstrate later in this video as well. Alright, now let's move on to the display of these two phones. The HTC One of course has a larger screen compared to the 5S with a 4.7-inch screen, while the iPhone 5S only has a 4-inch screen. It all comes down to your personal preference. If you got used to the previous generation iPhones, you probably want to have a smaller screen like a 4-inch screen because your thumb can reach all 4 corners. Or if you have used another Android phone before with a fairly large screen, the HTC One is probably the one for you. The HTC One also has a very high screen resolution, 1920 by 1080 pixels, 469 pixels per inch. When it was released in March 2013, it was the phone with the highest pixel density in the market. On the other hand, the iPhone 5S has a slightly lower resolution, 1136 by 640 pixels. This has a 326 pixels per inch density. So it's about 100 ppi less than the HTC One. Now, it's very difficult to spot any pixels on these two smartphones, simply because the amount of pixel density is so high that our human eye cannot see a pixel. To sum this up, both phones have excellent display. It's very difficult to judge which one is better. The only factor that can differentiate is the screen size. It depends on if you prefer a 4.7-inch larger screen or a smaller 4-inch screen. Alright, now let's move on to the specs and the benchmark. The benchmark tools that I will be using today will be Geekbench 3 and GFX Bench. The iPhone 5S has the new Apple A7 1.3 GHz dual-core 64-bit processor with 1 GB of RAM. The HTC One has the Qualcomm Snapdragon 600 quad-core 1.7 GHz processor with 1.5 GB of RAM. It's running on Android 4.2.2. So let's go ahead and begin with the Geekbench test to see what the benchmark score is for each processor. So here is the score for the benchmark. The iPhone 5S scored first for both single-core and multi-core score. So the Apple A7 is a pretty beast processor. It doesn't mean that the Snapdragon 600 is a bad processor. In fact, this is one of the best Qualcomm processor that you can get on a phone. So now let's go ahead and test the graphics performance of these two smartphones. I'll be using GFX Bench to test the benchmark. So as you can see, the iPhone 5S has a higher FPS compared to the HTC One. Keep in mind that this is live rendering, so it doesn't mean that the HTC One will run games at a really low FPS. So it is expected that these two smartphones will run intense graphics games without lag or dropped frame rates. So in the benchmark test, the iPhone 5S is the winner. Alright, now let's go ahead and do the software comparison. I'm sure that you guys all know that the iPhone 5S is running on iOS 7. This is a major update to iOS 6. All the icons changed to a simplistic, flat, really colorful design. They also added some features to iOS 7, such as the control center. So in here you can change your brightness, your volume quickly. You can also have a bunch of toggles such as Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, airplane mode, and things like that. So Control Center is a pretty useful feature in iOS 7. They also changed the multitasking switcher to this card layout, similar to Windows Phone 8. The notification also looks very nice with the blurred background. It's also very organized with today's notification, all, and missed notifications. So overall, if you enjoy using iOS, then the iPhone is probably the one for you, because the biggest difference between these two smartphones, HTC One and the iPhone 5S, is probably their operating systems. Alright, now let's go ahead and move on to the HTC One. My current HTC One is running on Android 4.2.2 Jelly Bean, which isn't the latest update of Android. I think we can all agree that Android is very customizable compared to iOS. Even though iOS 7 does have some cool features, some useful features such as Control Center, but compared to Android, it's just not that customizable. Unless you jailbreak your iOS 7 device, which currently there isn't a jailbreak yet, so you will have to wait for a jailbreak. If you jailbreak your iOS device, you can download some pretty cool Cydia tweaks, which can make your iPhone a lot more customizable. As you can see on my HTC One, I have a launcher, a custom icon pack. By the way, the launcher is called Action Launcher. You can download tons of widgets inside the Google Play Store, as well as applications that can change your system settings. Alright, now let's go ahead and move on to the application comparison. The iPhone 5S has the iOS App Store. The HTC One has the Google Play Store. In terms of the amount of applications in each store, just recently, Android actually surpassed the App Store in the amount of applications. I think both of these stores have over 1 million available applications for you to download, but in terms of quality applications, I think that the App Store has a bit more. Simply because the App Store is just designed for their iOS devices, the iPhone, iPod, iPads. But on Android, the Google Play Store applications have so many different apps made or designed for different devices. But talking about the HTC One, there isn't a large issue regarding the compatibility of different applications. So it all comes down to you, which operating system you prefer, iOS or Android. After using my HTC One for almost a month, I have to say that I personally enjoy using Android a bit more than iOS. So now let's go ahead and take a look at the battery life. The iPhone 5S has a fairly small rechargeable lithium-ion battery. It's 1440 mAh. You can go up to 10 hours of talk time, 250 hours of standby, 10 hours of video playback, and around 8 hours of internet usage. The HTC One has a bigger battery life, 2300 mAh, so almost 1000 mAh more. Both of these batteries are non-removable because of the unibody aluminum design. For the HTC One, you can go up to 18 hours of talk time and 480 hours of standby. According to my experience, I did notice that the HTC One does have a higher or a longer battery life compared to the 5S. A bigger battery is always better. The clear winner here is the HTC One. The HTC One has NFC built into the phone. Personally, I don't use NFC that much, but I know a lot of people who use NFC on a daily basis. They use NFC along with Google Wallet, or use NFC tags, or even just bumping phones to transfer files or photos. So these are the features of NFC, and the iPhone 5S does not have that. Many iPhone users were pretty disappointed when Apple announced the iPhone 5S without NFC. A feature that the HTC One does not have on the 5S is, of course, the fingerprint sensor. So you can use your fingerprint to unlock your device, and you can also use it to purchase music in iTunes or purchase applications in the App Store. It's easy to set up in settings, and you can store up to 5 different fingerprints. The HTC One does have Beats audio enhancements, so your music will have some extra bass. Overall sounds better if you listen through headphones or earphones. As I said before, the HTC One speakers sound amazing. These are called boom sound speakers, and they are front or forward facing speakers. So when you listen to music or watch videos on YouTube or watch any movies, the audio will go straight to your ears. So I'm going to do a comparison between these two speakers and see which one is better. Hopefully this is obvious.
My name is Giovanni Giorgio, but everybody calls me Giorgio. My name is Giovanni Giorgio, but everybody calls me Giorgio.
So clearly, the HTC One boom sound speaker sounds way better than the iPhone 5S. The speakers on the 5S actually does not sound that bad compared to other smartphones that I have used, but the HTC One speaker is just way up in the top, and it blows every other cell phone speakers out of the water. Alright, now let's move on to the last segment, which is the camera comparison. The iPhone 5S has an 8 megapixel camera, f2.2 aperture, and it records full 1080p HD 30 frames per second videos. As you can see, the video footage looks pretty awesome here. This is inside the mall. The iPhone 5S has video image stabilization, so you should get smooth video shots when you film with your iPhone 5S. You can also do 120 frames per second slow motion video, which records in 720p HD. This is a new feature in iPhone 5S. I actually recorded a separate video demoing or showing the slow motion feature on the iPhone 5S, so you can click the annotation to watch that video. And check out my slow motion jump shot. Everything just looks so cool in slow motion. So here's a low light test of the 5S. This is a video test, obviously. I am in a room with really less lights, and it performs fairly well, mainly because of the low aperture f2.2. And this is inside my room where I am actually editing this video right now. So here, let's go ahead and take a look at the HTC One camera. This is a 4 megapixel ultra pixel camera. Basically, they increased the size of the pixel in the picture. Even though this has a low 4 megapixel camera, the picture that you can take from the HTC One looks great. So these are some HDR photos that I took. The reason I have these awesome looking photos from the HTC One is because I took them a few weeks ago, which I did not have the iPhone 5S yet. So here's a side-by-side comparison of the low light test using the HTC One and the 5S. The HTC One is on the right, and it performs very well in low light situation because of the low megapixel count and the ultra pixel sensor. The dual LED flash on the iPhone 5S looks quite a bit better than the flash on the HTC One. So here's a video I shot inside the playground. It's a fairly sunny day, so the video turned out great. Here's another side-by-side comparison comparing these two smartphones. Again, this is outdoor in fairly good weather. The autofocus works fairly well on both devices, but sometimes on the HTC One I have to tap to focus a bit more. So here's another low light performance test comparison between these two phones, and the HTC One just looks a lot better in low light situation. It's a lot brighter and just overall has a better image. So here's a test of the front-facing camera on both phones. Again, the HTC One has a very wide angle lens on the front-facing camera, so it's great for doing vlogs and things like that. You can also record slow motion 120 frames per second videos in the HTC One, but that only records in 480p. You can also record 60 frames per second 720p HD. So this concludes my video comparison of these two smartphones. If you reached this far to the video, just go ahead and give this video a thumbs up. Thanks a lot for watching this video, and I will see you guys in my next video.